Everybody, welcome to Vikings Report Rewind, our post-draft extravaganza palooza. As always, I'm your humble host, Ted Glover. With me are my usual partners in crime. To my upper left would be the one and only Christopher Gates, the founder, lead blogger, and numero uno purveyor of the SB Nation Minnesota Vikings website, the Daily Norseman. That's dailynorseman.com. And to my upper right, um, prankster extraordinaire, number one Michigan fan, and sticker placer of Michigan stickers all over my freaking house, Mr. Drew Bunting, somewhere in the back. Also a sticker placer of Michigan stickers in this house of Ohio State that I will be finding probably for the next 6 months. Ruby, she's making this all possible. Folks, how are we doing tonight?
Doing
Oh
great,
man, we're
Ted.
doing great. Absolutely. The draft is in the books. The undrafted free agents are signed. There's 90 guys on the Vikings roster. Let's roll. Let's go. Let's start training camp now.
Yes.
I have one more bone to pick with Drew and Ruby. So if you guys didn't watch the live draft show, Drew and Ruby came over. They Drew and I did the show together at my house. It was pretty cool. When they left, I noticed it. Drew's holding them up. They left stickers all over my house, Michigan stickers all over my house, and I came down to set up, and there was this hanging in the background here. They thought I wouldn't find it, and I found that as well.
Oh, it's all good
Anyways,
fun, Ted
it was
Glover.
a great time. We had a blast.
Yeah, we did.
It was, going into this draft, and folks, if you're just joining us, we're going to give away a prize. We set up Thursday. We were going to give away a T-shirt.
Yep.
On Thursday night on the live draft show, we did not. We're going to give that away tonight at the end of the show. To be eligible to win that prize, all you got to do is make a comment. Ruby is keeping track. We are going to spin the Toons' Wheel of Destiny. We are also going to give away another prize. We're going to do that here in a little bit when we talk about draft picks.
Cool.
So, yeah, we'll give away a prize that as well. But going into this draft, Christopher Gates, a lot of people said that this was the most important draft in Vikings franchise history. Did the results live up to that in your opinion?
I think they kind of did. Yeah. I mean, that we decided, or the basically through what happened this offseason, the Vikings decided that they needed to go in a different direction at quarterback, and so they wound up drafting J.J. McCarthy. They didn't have to move up to 4. They didn't have to move up to 5. They didn't have to move up to 8. They had to move up one whole pick to get the quarterback that, from listening to him talk about him, it kind of sounded like they wanted him all along. And, then they gave up a few more picks, and they drafted a guy who literally going into the draft was considered by a lot of the really smart football types to be the best defensive player in this entire draft class. He was universally projected to go in the top 10, to be to be the first defensive player off the board by most mocks. And yeah, you get a couple of guys like that, it's hard to consider it anything other than a successful draft. And, they got some solid guys later, but obviously it's probably going to be defined by McCarthy and Dallas Turner. And yeah, I think they did a solid job, all things considered.
Drew, I want to follow up with what Chris said on J.J. McCarthy. It sounded like they wanted him all along. I'm of the contention that it was Drake May and J.J. McCarthy as 1 or 1A. There were rumors, and we talked about it on Thursday night, that going into the draft that the Vikings kind of had a handshake deal in place for Drake May, and it was 11-23, the 2 first-round picks the Vikings had, and a 2025 first. It came out later in the night when the Pats held on to the 3rd overall pick and picked Drake May, that the Vikings offered even more, that it was those 3 picks, a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick. There were other reports, I think, from a Denver Broncos account that it was 11-23 and that 2025 first and a swap of 2nd and 3rd round picks. Either way, it was an insane compensation package to move up to 3rd. But the bottom line was the Vikings ended up just trading with the Jets, getting a pick 11, 129, and 157 to get pick 10 and 203 to move up one spot to get J.J. McCarthy. Are you okay with that, or would you have preferred giving up all that to go up to number 3 and get Drake May?
I like exactly how it unfolded because Sean Payton got screwed because I know he wanted McCarthy, and every time he gets screwed, it's a happy draft for me. I'm going to go with what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah said after the draft at his press conference. Somebody asked him the same question of all that stuff you just reeled off. His answer, I don't know where that came from. You know better than I don't know where that crap comes from. I don't think the Vikings even did that.
In terms of offering all that stuff?
That's what he said. Out of his mouth, he said, I don't know where that comes from. I saw it. Tusa saw it. We were both watching it. He said it's all BS. So I'm going to go with what he said. And that was his answer to the person. And they framed the question just like you said, all the offering. And did they? And he says, I don't know where that came from. You'd know better than I. I don't know. So he's saying it's all bullshit. That's what he's saying. So I'm happy on the kid. I mean, Ted, come on. The guy quarterbacks my college football team to a national championship, and now he's going to take my pro football team to their first Super Bowl. I am been kind of quelled on my J.J. McCarthy. I didn't want to see all Homer, like ecstatic Chris Gates, but I've been holding back. No reason to hold back any longer. He's going to get it done. And I'm glad the way that it unfolded. I'm glad they didn't give up all that crap if it was true. And you know what? He said two things during that phone call, Ted and Chris. He said, I won't let you down, coach. And he said, let's get to work. I'm anxious to get started. Pretty much same two things Peyton Manning said. So, no, I'm glad we didn't. I mean, we walked out of this draft, Ted, looking. I mean, one of my overall thoughts now is that Mensah knew he wasn't getting a second. I'm not getting a third. I'm not getting a fifth. So you better damn well believe my first two guys are going to be good.
Yeah.
Vikings got the number one quarterback in 2025 had he stayed in school. There's no question J.J. McCarthy gets number one spot next year. So they got the number one quarterback in 2025 a year early and the best defensive player in the draft, the best edge player in the draft. That's all they got to do is hit on a couple of these late guys, and I'm happy with the draft. I'm happy that we may have the nuts to go out and try to do something. I mean, come on.
Because they didn't make that huge trade for Drake May, later on in the draft, they were able to make a trade for what many people consider the best defensive player in the draft, Alabama edge Dallas Turner. And that was kind of if people were going to complain, and it's going to be the analytics nerd number guys, because the Vikings gave up 23, 167, a 5th round pick, a 2025 3rd round pick, and a 2025 4th round pick for pick 17. And I don't really care about the 4th round pick. I don't really care about the 5th round pick. I don't even really care about the 3rd round pick, because you're going up to get what is the consensus best defensive player in this class. When you look at the flotsam and jetsam of 4th and 5th round picks Rick Spielman has drafted over the years. Ryan Bozer on Twitter, I saw this a few days ago, listed all the 5th round picks that since Stephon Diggs. You know, Stephon Diggs was a 5th round pick. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you. We just can't see you. You disappeared. Right, well, but we can hear you.
Stephon Diggs was a 5th round pick. And since Diggs, there was like maybe KJ Osborne and one or two other guys. I think Cam Bynum was a decent pick. But of all the other 30 dudes that were 5th round picks, none of them amounted to anything. So what would you want to take a 1% chance that a 5th round pick would turn out, or go get a guy that you think can be a huge difference maker now?
Right.
Drew, you answer that question while I try and fix my camera here.
I think we've been longing for quality over quantity in this fan base. You can ask David Stefano, good friend of the show, and the guy who runs First and Skull and Two Old Bloggers, good friend of mine. Hey, Dave, I don't know if you're in here tonight, but you are. He and Darren Campbell. We've been so pissed about all these 7th round guys that haven't worked out because they're trying to get more players to hit on. Went complete opposite this year. Let's try to get the blue chipper and give up that other stuff and try to do it this way. And I am refreshed, Ted, that we're trying it this way. It does, if you get somebody mentioned in the might have been Nick Howard or GMAC, might have been, I can't remember who. It's been a long 3 days. If you get 15 draft picks and 2 of them work out, it's just, what good is that? So, and I'm glad we're trying it this direction. Dallas Turner is an amazing player.
Chris, had you seen anything about Dallas Turner being flagged for injury? Somebody mentioned that to me on Twitter about an hour ago, that he was dropping because he was flagged for injury, and it was Walter Football didn't like the trade or the pick because they said he had surgery early in 2023 in the spring, but then again he went out and had his best season in 2023, and had his both statistically and had no injuries or anything, whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that report at all. I just think it was a bunch of BS, to be quite honest. So
I had not seen anything significant about Dallas Turner and injuries and whatnot. I know he apparently sat out a lot of the spring stuff in 2023 because he was recovering from something or another. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but other than that, I don't recall seeing anything significant about Dallas Turner's injury history. I mean, I didn't think we were going to get the guy, so I didn't dive too much into it before the draft or anything like that. So I don't know 100% for sure, but I don't recall any significant, injury stuff. I mean, like I said, he was the consensus. If you looked at all the mock drafts going into the draft weekend, in just about every mock draft, he was the first defensive player off the board, and he was going in the top 10. It's just, he was universally connected pretty much to Atlanta at 8 until they. We don't even need to talk about what Atlanta did anymore because everybody hates it, and that's okay. But I didn't see anything about that. I mean, if there had been anything significant, he wouldn't have been universally thought of as a top 10 pick and the best defensive player in the draft. Because when you're the first, when you're mocked as the first defensive guy off the board, that kind of makes you the best defensive player in the class somehow by most measures. So if the injury history would have been super significant, I don't think that he would have been there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Drew, did you guys have any qualms about the compensation given up for the trade at all?
No, I don't,
Absolutely
because it's a position that can change a game. A corner changes a game. An edge guy can change a game. We saw Hunter change plenty of games. And this guy's, when you look at his tape and watch tape and watch the good and the bad of the whole tape, there's one thing that jumps off all the time, and that's the speed and the power combo. The Chris Dolman speed and power combo. That's what Dolman had. It made him so good. You know who I'm talking. All these other guys that some guys are just special off the edge. I don't care what they gave up to get him. They need that in there. Flores is going to go crazy this season with he and some of the other guys they got on the defense. But if Dallas Turner stays healthy, he's a game changer, Ted. You want those guys on your team.
Go ahead, Chris.
And to go back to what Drew said, I mean, I know Danielle Hunter left and everything this year, but it's possible that, I'm not even going to say it's possible. I firmly believe that even without Danielle Hunter, the Vikings pass rush has gotten significantly better because, last year's pass rushers were basically Hunter and, DJ Wanham was okay. He had his moments and whatnot, but it was Hunter and a bunch of dudes that really weren't anything spectacular. Now you've got Dallas Turner, you've got Jonathan Grenard, you got Andrew Van Ginkel. You can bring those dudes in waves as pass rushers. You can have them all out there at the same time if you want to. Brian Flores is a freaking mad scientist, and he is going to figure out exactly what to do with these guys. And even if Danielle Hunter's in Houston now, this pass rush is going to be significantly better, I think.
Great point, Chris.
You guys ever see the original movie, black and white version, Frankenstein? You got the mad
Frankenstein?
scientist. No, not the Mel Brooks one.
Frankenstein.
Like
not
the original
the Knockers one. The
No.
Amazing Knockers.
not it's Frankenstein. No, the original one.
I did see that.
Yeah. So where he's he's flipping switches and he's doing the wheels, and then all of a sudden the electricity hits, and he's like, "It's alive! It's alive!" That's like Flores, like in the film room right now, like conjuring up defensive schemes with all those guys that he's got. I mean, you just think it was right maybe a couple weeks before the Oakland game, I think, where we came on a post game show, maybe after the Saints game. I can't remember exactly when it was. Maybe it was at the height of the Josh Dobbs mania. But the Vikings had a top 5 defense or top 10 defense in either yards or points allowed. And we were just absolutely marveled at what a job Brian Flores was doing. And he was doing it with a bunch of guys, basically. Outside of Danielle Hunter and Harrison Smith, it was just a bunch of guys. And now, you talk about Dallas Turner and Chris, you mentioned Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman and Grenard. Harrison Smith is coming back for one more rodeo. He has much better players, at least on paper, right now than he did at this time last year. And the dude is just a mad scientist. And I say this in the most complimentary way. The dude is a mad scientist genius when it comes to coming up with ways to put players in position to succeed. I mean, look what he did with Josh Metellus. He had Josh Metellus playing 7 or 8 different spots last year on defense. So I mean, it's just
man.
I'm excited.
You talk about mad scientist, Ted, Chris. It's he came out, took the defense from nothing 31 all the way up to number 5 or 8 or whatever it was. You're right. He did it with a bunch of players who weren't used to playing with each other and weren't used to playing his system.
Yeah.
And they said, here's your linebacker, rookie from Cincinnati, named Ivan Pace.
Ivan Pace, yeah, we didn't even mention Ivan Pace.
Look at what he did with all those guys. You give him another year, it's totally, it's a lie. You're right, Ted. He's going to, Flores is part of the reason for this big turnaround for the Minnesota. So,
all right. So day 1, Vikings get their quarterback of the future and they get the consensus number 1 defensive player. Day 2, they closed up Egan. Then nobody came to work. They took the day off because they didn't have any picks. Day 3, though, they had a pretty busy day. I expected them to do a bunch of trading. I kind of thought, in Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa's first 2 years as GM, he did a lot of trading on day 3. He stayed put. He didn't make any trades. He used all his picks. In the 4th round, he picked what a lot of guys think is a prototypical cornerback for the Brian Flores defense. Oregon cornerback Kyrie Jackson, pick 108. And then didn't have a pick in the 5th round. In the 6th round, they had 2 picks at 177 and 203. They had offensive tackle Walter Rouse and kicker Will Reichard from Alabama. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
And then in the 7th round, they had 2 picks, 230 and 232. Center Michael Juergens from Wake Forest and defensive tackle Levi Drake Rodriguez from Texas A&M Commerce. Thoughts on day 3, Drew?
I was expecting all the trade backs, Ted, like you. That's what we were waiting for, and it didn't happen, and I'm glad. Just take your player. Got 2 star players the first day, and then we, I was happy. I mean, I had to research some of these guys. I got 3 guys drafted total off my Drew Big Boards, but the last 4 weren't on my Drew Big Boards. But positionally, I think they hit it right what they need. We'll get into it, when you want to talk about one at a time on these guys. But I was happy with how it turned out.
Chris, were you surprised that the Vikings didn't do any trading? That they just stayed put and took guys?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought they were going to trade down from their 4th round pick to see if they could maybe, drop down a little bit in the 4th, maybe pick up a 5th or something like that. But like you said, they didn't. They just took their guys where they were comfortable taking their guys, and it was not quite the excitement we're used to from draft weekend. But you know what? That's perfectly acceptable. I mean, they got guys like Drew said, they got guys at positions they needed to get guys at, and they did a really solid job, I thought, given what they had.
I mean, I don't know for a fact, Ted, but I'm thinking in the 4th round, they might have wanted to trade back and had a small board of 4 or 5 or 6 guys that they said, if we can get one of these guys, we're going to get him. And I think Kyrie Jackson was on there. He's perfect corner for, I think Brian Flores probably spoke up and said, we're not trading out of anything. Get that dude. So I think they really like Kyrie Jackson.
I do too. Yeah, I believe that to be true as well.
They may have been planning on trading out, but they didn't.
A couple things I want to mention about Levi Drake Rodriguez, defensive tackle, the last pick for the Vikings. He was named as Prospect X by The Athletic, and they define Prospect X as a small school, which Texas A&M Commerce definitely qualifies as. He was a non-combine invite. He was a non-top 3 All-Star game invite guy. But they think he is a guy that has a very good shot to make an NFL roster because he's a very good player. And you look at guys like that, and the Vikings, I think his RAS score, his raw athletic score is pretty good comparatively to some of these other guys. And I saw an interview that the Vikings did with him. I think Lindsey Young did the interview. She's a really great staff writer for the Vikings. The guy's like, hey, look, don't count me out. You should see there's 40 people in my 900 square foot house right now in my living room. And I'm gonna make it. And I'll tell you what, I can't tell you how much I root for dudes like that. So I hope Levi Drake Rodriguez makes it.
And if you read the Prospect X story, which not everyone's going to do because it's behind the Athletic paywall or whatever, but one of the anecdotes that Kaler relays about Rodriguez is he wanted to be the first person at the practice facility every day when he got to practice, and he got pissed off. None of his teammates were beating him there. None of the coaches were beating him there. The janitor was beating him to the facility every day. So he got so annoyed by that, he started sleeping at the facility the night before practice so that he could be the first dude at the facility for practice that day. I mean, the dude is obsessed with football. I mean, if you have an opportunity to read the story from The Athletic, it's really something because, he started out at some NAIA school, like Southwestern Assemblies of God or something like that. And then he went to Texas A&M Commerce, and his story is just crazy, and I'm unreasonably optimistic about his chances now because I really want dudes like this to make it, honestly.
Now I have one more bit of trivia about the Vikings, Mr. Irrelevant, defensive tackle Levi Drake Rodriguez. There are 2 Vikings that have also gone to Texas A&M Commerce.
Ooh.
Drew Bunting clued me in on this. It's not like I knew this off the top of my head. Drew Bunting did because he's Mr. Viking. There are 2 alumni of Texas A&M Commerce. The first person now I will give you a clue that the Texas A&M Commerce was not named Texas A&M Commerce when these 2 guys went to this school. If you can name these 2 players, you'll win a prize. First 2 people that can name the alumni of Texas A&M Commerce before Levi Drake Rodriguez, you get a prize. Not the T-shirt.
Oh, not the T-shirt. Okay.
We're winning the T-shirt at the end.
Okay. Sorry.
John Randall is not it. John Randall is not the correct answer.
That was Texas A&I.
John Randall went to Texas A&I. And when these 2 guys went to Texas A&M Commerce, it was the school had a different name.
Yep.
All right. So with those guys on day 3, Drew, you said I think Kyrie Jackson is probably the best prospect of those. Chris, would you agree with that?
I think so. Like you said, he's a big corner. I think he's listed about 6'4", 200 pounds. Just the kind of press man corner that Brian Flores wants. He started out at Alabama, played Alabama. His first start was in the national championship game one year for whichever year that was for the Crimson Tide, and then he transferred to Oregon. And he's got an interesting story too, because he got out of high school and he straight up quit playing football for a while, and he was slicing meat at a deli at a grocery store somewhere, and then he was like, you know what, I want to get back into playing football, and he did, and now he's, like I said, he went to a couple of junior colleges, and then he wound up at Alabama. So he's an older player already. He's going to be 25 by the time training camp starts, but it's just another interesting story for the Vikings. And dude comes from, it's the Rocky story. I mean, he's slicing meat, and then he's now he's in the National Football League.
All right, looks like Anthony Tollison was the first one to use Google correctly on our trivia question. He got that trivia question right. It was in fact Audrey Beeman and Whiskey Wade Wilson back then when it was called Texas State.
Right.
Congratulations, Anthony. You get a prize. Have you know the drill? You've won a prize before. Get a hold of Ruby at VikingsReportDrew@gmail.com. She'll send you a link to the prize vault. Congratulations, Anthony. All right.
Also, thanks for the money donation draft night.
Yeah, thanks for the money. Do you remember doing that? Or were you too drunk, Anthony?
I don't know. The money kept going up, so he could.
Yeah.
Texas A&M Commerce, the great East Texas, whatever it was called, the great school of Harvey Martin, and the great defensive tackle for the Steelers, Dwight White. They also went there.
Did they really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Harvey Martin. Remember that guy? He's like 13 feet tall on the edge. Yeah, those two guys went there. But continue with Kyrie.
So have anything else with Kyrie there, Chris?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I've seen some people kind of speculate that they might wind up moving him to safety or whatnot, but he just seems like the kind of corner that Brian Flores would want to have on the outside of the defense to play press man and that sort of thing. Kind of the type of corner that he really doesn't have right now as much as he would like to have one. So hopefully they can get him worked in and get him into the rotation sooner rather than later.
Reminds me very much of the Mekhi Blackman pick last year. And Mekhi Blackman, I thought, played very well.
He did.
Yeah.
When he played.
On tape, Jackson kind of reminds me of a Caleb Evans. He's a capable tackler. He wants to tackle when he gets in there. It's probably the lower part of his game. But the first thing when I saw him, when I did my draft write-up on him, is the size of the guy, 6'4", 200 pound, 194. The first thing I thought of as I'm watching play after play is guys this tall, Chris and Ted, are not this athletic. It's really a mind blower when you watch it, how athletic the guy is and going up and knocking down passes. And he fell in the draft to the 4th round because he ran the 4.5. And he is sneaky quick though. And I don't think that long speed is going to hurt him that bad at the next level. I mean, you talk about his long speed and that guy has more potential in the corner group than probably anybody else on the board, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I read a scouting report, and it sounds like a guy that Flores would love to coach because he could play either side. He could play the slot. Very versatile dude, which is, and Flores is a guy that likes to move chess pieces around. So, yeah. And if he becomes a slot guy, the downfield speed isn't going to be something that's going to be super critical like it would if you're going to be playing on the outside. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'm kind of hoping he works out outside because his press skills are really good. He's a great press corner, and the only time he has trouble is the long speed. He gets a little grabby, gets some flags thrown on him. Those corners that get a little grabby rather than get beat deep, which is sometimes an advantage, sometimes not. But I still think Byron Murphy should be the slot guy. And if you can get this guy, Jackson and Blackman, man, those are two guys that could just erupt on the scene, man. I'm really happy with that pick.
Does this pick portend doom for a Caleb Evans and or Andrew Booth Jr., Chris?
Maybe.
I mean, it could. I mean, Booth was having a hard time getting on the field until toward the end of last year. Now, when he got on the field toward the end of last year, he didn't play poorly or anything, but his rookie year was kind of a disaster, and his second year he got a little bit better. Evans, and I think I've said this before, that guy looked so completely disinterested the second half of last year. I mean, he was missing tackles. He was getting beat. It was bad for him the second half of last year. I don't know what exactly the issue was. I know he had concussion issues again. He had to sit out a couple games, so I remember right. But I don't know what the thing was with him. But the second half of last season, Caleb Evans was not very good. So those two guys are probably going to have a fight on their hands in camp this year. Maybe not to make the roster necessarily, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Kyrie Jackson ahead of both of those guys by the end of training camp.
He could have been easily pushed up to the second round. Bleacher Report had him as a second rounder. He was, 24 years old. You don't want to say what you want about the age thing, but Ted, he could put them all over the place. Like you said, Flores is going to love it. Range of coverages. Press man is his best thing, but, what was he? What was it? 34 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 7 passes defense. He's a great player. He's a natural talent. So I'm hoping, I think they got a good value with him in the 4th round.
The next pick was in the 6th round, 177, Walter Rouse, tackle out of Oklahoma, which I kind of didn't really get. I thought they needed an interior offensive lineman more than they needed a tackle, but you talk about Brian O'Neill had some injury problems and swing tackle if they're going to move Blake Brandel to guard, which it kind of seems like they're going to do if they don't sign Dalton Reisner. They might need a swing tackle. Rouse was, I think, the highest rated PFF guy in college in terms of pass blocking. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but it was still sort of a surprise to me, Chris.
Yeah, I can understand it. We've talked about, you mentioned Brian O'Neill having some injury issues. Christian Darrisaw has missed a couple games with injuries over the past couple years, and that makes the swing tackle a pretty important position. I know David Quessenberry got re-signed by the Vikings. So he's only on a 1-year deal. He's going to be back, so he's probably going to compete with Rouse for the swing tackle position. But yeah, the PFF grades on Walter Rouse were really solid. I think I saw he allowed like 6 pressures all season or something like that, which is pretty darn good. And you look at the University of Oklahoma, they had in both of the last 2 years, they've had both of their starting offensive tackles drafted. They had both of their offensive tackles drafted in 2023, and they had both of their offensive tackles drafted this year too. So whatever they're doing in Oklahoma to develop offensive linemen, they're doing it right because that their guys keep getting drafted and they keep performing in the NFL. So
right,
he's going to be a guy that will almost definitely compete for that swing tackle spot. And he might even win it straight away coming out of camp. So that if you're looking at it from that perspective, it was a pretty solid pick, I believe.
Was Rouse a surprise pick for you, Drew?
It was a little bit of a surprise, but after I did a little bit more research on the guy, I understand the pick because you can never have enough O-line depth for J.J. McCarthy and Aaron Jones. It never hurts to have really competent blockers to have depth as a swing guy on the offensive line. I think the Vikings have struggled with offensive line depth over the years, and I think that one last thing on Kyrie Jackson, Ted. He's only played in 25 games, so don't expect him to come out right away and be Ty Law. He's
right.
For sure. Only one full season at Oregon. It was a very spotty player with Alabama. So one full season. It's going to be a developmental work in progress, but Flores will make him into a star. Walter Rouse, it was a little bit of a surprise. I didn't think they were going to go that position at that call, but the dude, 53 games at Wake Forest. Forgot the right guy.
Rouse? No, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, sorry. 53
Rouse is
games,
Oklahoma.
3,400 snaps. I think it was a great pick when you look at it. He played 3 years at Stanford. Started all the games as a freshman there. I mean, it's Pac-12, but still. I got a couple numbers on him that are really cool that I found out. He's a player that's getting better, Ted. And we talk about players who progress. We like those players. In 2022, on 427 pass blocking snaps, he gave up 5 sacks and 11 hurries. In 2023, in 480 pass blocking snaps, which is 50 more than he had in 2022, 0 sacks allowed and only 4 hurries. So there's a big jump in good production there. That stands out to me. So I kind of understand why they went that. They're worried about depth at tackle, and he could end up being, like Chris said, a starting guy. You don't know.
So their other pick in the 6th round, pick 203, 6th rounder, kicker Will Reichard out of Alabama, and people said a kicker, and I kind of felt bad because I was making fun of the Bears when they drafted a punter in the 4th round. I put like what I thought was a very funny tweet out, and then the Vikings go ahead and draft a kicker in the 6th round, and I kind of felt stupid, and I logged off Twitter for a while, but I didn't get any blowback on that, so I kind of felt happy about that. But yeah, so
that just means the Bears got the best offensive player at 3 different schools. They got USC's best offensive player in Caleb Williams. They got Washington's best offensive player in Roma Dunza, and they got Iowa's best offensive player in their punter, Torrey Taylor. Because that guy, that Iowa offense is just they keep producing these NFL level tight ends, but that offense is just god awful every year. I don't understand how Chris Barron still has a job. It's bad, but yeah.
I will say Ryan Poles is playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers, because he drafts Caleb Williams and then he drafts Roma Dunze. And then he goes in the 4th round. He says, look, we know Caleb Williams is going to be a monumental bust and he's going to suck, so we better draft the punter because he's not going to be able to convert a first down. So we better get the best punter in the draft. We better get him early. So Ryan Poles is operating on a different level than the rest of the GMs in the National Football League.
Chris, what did Iowa have, like 9 total touchdowns on their offense?
Something like that. I mean, and nobody from Iowa knows how to call a fair catch either. So that they have that going for them.
Here we go. Anyway, so people were complaining about that, but he was like the leading scorer in FBS football.
It's either SEC history or NCAA history. It's one of the two.
Yeah. So I mean, like, look. So you either get a 6th round pick on that, or you get a 6th round pick on a guy that is going to be a flyer at just about any other position. And now you've got a legit kicking competition because they signed a guy who I think was the leading scorer as a kicker in the XFL last year.
Yep.
Right? Or
yep,
one of the best kickers. Yeah.
He was the all XFL kicker his previous season in the XFL.
So, I mean, say what you want about drafting a kicker in the 6th round. You can have your legit philosophical, you can have your legit philosophy about drafting a kicker. I get it. I don't think he would have been available as an undrafted free agent. I think somebody would have taken him.
No, he wouldn't have
been. But the Vikings are looking to address the issue finally long term when kicking has been a pain in the Vikings' ass since 1998, man. I mean, okay, fine. I'm actually okay with it.
No, I mean, if you're going to do that, it's better to get a guy that you like. And like you said, he probably wasn't going to be available as an undrafted free agent because, I know Dane Brugler over at the Athletic and his draft guy had Reichard as the number 1 kicker available in this year's draft class. So somebody probably would have taken him in either the 6th round after the Vikings pick or sometime in the 7th round. But yeah, if you're going to do that and you're going to bring in a kicker and have a kicking competition with Reichard and John Parker Romo and that sort of thing, it's better to get a guy that you actually believe in rather than trying to fight everybody in undrafted free agency for kickers and whatnot. Because once you get into undrafted free agency, it's a free for all. You're not guaranteed to get anybody you like, anybody that you might think was worth potentially drafting. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the Vikings taking a kicker, especially like we said, one that's the one of the leading scorers in college football history. Made 84% of his field goals, made a bunch of kicks from over 50 yards. And I mean, he played at Alabama, so he played in lots of big games over the course of his college career. So, it seems like a pretty solid pick at that point. And, like Ted said, if you're going to use a 6th round pick on somebody at another position, the odds are really good they're not making the team anyway. So you could just as well get a guy that, has better than average odds of making the team at that spot in the 6th round.
Drew, you okay with drafting a kicker in the 6th round there?
Yes, I am, and I want people to sit down, Minnesota Viking fans, and get a load of this list I'm going to read off to you.
Yeah.
Doug Bryan, Aaron Elling, Paul Edinger, Kai Forbath, Daniel Carlson, Dan Bailey, Greg Joseph, and Blair Walsh. I'm damn happy we're getting a guy that could just take this list and just throw it in the garbage can, Ted. And when I look at, he had all the numbers at Alabama. He had 84 field goals, 295 extra points, 547 career points. But listen, when I look at kickers, my big thing is pressure. There's no bigger pressure cooker than playing for Saban and playing all those games on TV and all those tight ball games, LSU, SEC. Whole career had to play for Saban. Not an easy thing to do. If you miss a couple field goals, you're going to be out on your ass. The guy has dealt with pressure. Put a big check mark right there. And I love the fact that when I watch him kick, it looks like old Chip Lowmiller, the old kicker for the Redskins who went to University of Minnesota, Chip Lowmiller. He gets so much height. He gets a lot of height on his kicks. I like the high. I mean, more than any other kicker I've seen in years. He gets the height. He's just his style. It seemed like they're gonna go through the uprights a little bit easier, and he was not going to be available as an undrafted free agent. The proof of that is the Rams took Cardi 6 picks later, the kicker, and then the Jags took Cam Little, another kicker, 2 picks after the Rams. Those guys had Reichard first. As soon as the Vikings took him, they ran up and got their other kickers because they did the old fantasy football. One guy leads in and the rest follow. And the Vikings played it perfectly. You know, people bitch about the Viking kicking. Well, let's try this guy. Let's try to remedy the Vikings kicking problems rather than bitching about. They take a kicker. Look at the big picture of what they're trying to do. They're trying to end this bullshit kicker thing they've had for years and years. And this is the guy to do it. The guy knows pressure. He's hit 8 out of his 10 50-yarders the last 2 seasons. I have faith in him. Let's go, Will Reichert.
One thing I want to comment on what you just said, and it's kind of been a trend I've noticed, and I don't know if it's been commented on elsewhere or not, but the guys the Vikings are picking, J.J. McCarthy, Dallas Turner, Reichert, they all come from these Power 5 big-time programs.
Right.
Played in big, important national championship level programs. I think that matters, Chris. I think that matters a lot because you have to, if you've never played now we talk about, Levi Drake Rodriguez at Texas A&M Commerce. Okay, that's 7-round pick. Okay, a small school, I get it. But you look at his first 3 years of picks. I mean, it's mostly guys from Power 5 schools and guys that have played in guys at schools like LSU that have played in big time games and conference championships, college football playoff, and have been around those big moments. And I personally, that's one of the reasons I've said this before, why J.J. McCarthy was ahead of Drake May for me, because that intangible is a big deal to me. And being able to perform in those big moments like Dallas Turner has and like J.J. McCarthy has and like Will Reichert has matters.
No, absolutely. I mean, like you said, these guys are playing in college football playoff games. They're playing in conference championship games. Like Drew said, Alabama's on TV all the damn time. All their games are on like CBS or ESPN, so they are constantly getting exposure. They draft guys from LSU. They draft guys from all these other big time schools. And like you said, these are guys who, when it gets to crunch time at the end of games, these are the guys that'll perform because they have a history of doing it before. I mean, you look at J.J. McCarthy. Dude lost 1 game in 2 years. It was a national semifinal game, and he lost that game by 3 points or something like that to TCU the 1 year that they didn't make it to the national championship game. I know McCarthy wasn't asked to carry the offense a whole lot, but when Jim Harbaugh went to J.J. McCarthy and said, "Dude, I need you to make me a play," he went out and made plays because that's what he was supposed to do, and Jim Harbaugh had the faith in him to do that. So, yeah, I think it's important that, and I think the Vikings have gotten to a point where they're kind of drafting a lot of team captains too.
Right.
Not only showing the guys, who are playing in the big games and the big situations, but who have been chosen, whether it's by the coaching staff or by their teammates, to be the leaders on those teams, and to kind of set the tempo for the rest of the guys around them.
Come on, it's like Ted said, when you get down to the 6th round, you're stems and seeds. You're scrambling for stems and seeds, and then you go down your list, you say, oh, the best kicker in college football. I think it's almost a value pick where they got him.
I do too. I agree. I agree.
And let's look at what the Viking kickers have caused the fan base, Ted. Heart attacks, depression. They're all on oxycodone. They're all, you got to have a defibrillator at your house because of the Viking kickers over the years.
Yeah.
Heartache. And, when are we going to have a good kicker? Well, maybe we took care of that problem. Maybe he's the next Justin Tucker. We got to be happy, be positive at this point.
If nothing else, there is a legit kicking competition in training camp. I don't think there really was last year between Reichert and the XFL dude. His name escapes you right now.
Romo's out. He's not going to make it.
We'll see. I mean, he's a pro guy, and he was really good in the XFL. We'll see. But I would think they would prefer the guy that they drafted. But we'll see. At least there's going to be a legit kicking competition, and may the best man win.
Yeah, but look at like you said, the 6th round guys are almost gone. That's a great pick right there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So we already talked about Levi Drake Rodriguez. So the last guy we'll talk about, pick 230, center Michael Juergens out of Wake Forest. This kind of makes sense to me. You're getting late in the draft. The Vikings needed an interior offensive lineman. I don't see him being an impact guy. I'd probably, if he makes the roster, he'll probably be on the practice squad unless he just absolutely surprises everybody. I don't know if you guys remember, but way back in the day, Matt Burke at one time was a 6th round pick, spent a year or two on the practice squad before he became an all-pro center. So, I mean,
he went to Harvard, right?
He did. Yeah, he did. He went to
Harvard.
Lightning comes from the sky, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, Matt Burke. He went to Harvard. That's the greatest United Way commercial ever, by the way, if you ask
really
what we're referencing. So maybe this will be the path that Juergens takes. But Drew, what are your thoughts on 6th round pick number 230 overall, the center, the young man from Wake Forest?
Again, another value guy, Ted. 61 games at Wake Forest and 46 starts. You gotta like the experience there. Got a good rating for ACC offensive lineman from PFF. Wasn't it? He was graded higher than anybody else as far as Chris might have that information as well. I don't got the details on it, but why not right there? Developmental guy. I think what's going to happen is he's going to be our left guard or compete with Brandel, but I think Juergens is going to be a guard and not a center. I know he plays center for Wake Forest, but I believe he did. Developmental guy. It's not going to be ready right away, but another developmental guy, Ted, with solid, like Kyrie Jackson, could be off the charts good. He could be a great. He's got all the tools and necessary things to be a shredding guard at this point. He just needs to be coached up a lot. He's a true definition of a gem, developmental gem. I'll put it like that. So we'll see what happens with him.
Okay, Chris, anything on the center?
No, I'm looking at what the Pro Football Focus has. They have all the they have little blurbs on every player that was drafted. Juergens, a little blurb here. It says earned an impressive 93.1 run block grade on 143 outside zone runs. In pass protection, he allowed just 10 pressures last season with 2 ending in sacks. And I think there's been some talk already, and I think Drew just mentioned it about the Vikings wanting to potentially kick him to guard and see what he can do there. But if they do that, that kind of gives them the flexibility that they kind of like in their interior offensive linemen. I mean, they had Austin Schlottman there last year, played a few games at center, was capable of playing a few games at guard. Blake Brandel has seen plenty of experience at tackle, but they've kicked him inside as well. And I know I've seen a couple of people mention Dalton Risner in the chat here. I don't know if the Vikings are going to bring him back yet or not, but I think he's more of a developmental guy, like Drew said. He might wind up on the practice squad. but he is definitely a guy I think the Vikings can keep an eye on for the future.
Okay, so overall, what would I hate doing this draft grade thing, but we're going to do it anyways. Everybody loves it. A through F. Drew, give the Vikings a draft grade.
Considering everything that went on, our position in the draft, I'm going to have to give them a strong B+ in this draft.
Chris,
hard to say though.
I agree. I'm going with a B+ as well. I mean, it's all going to obviously center around what McCarthy and Turner do at the top of the draft, but yeah, I think they did. I think they did a really solid job overall.
I'm going with A. I mean, look, we went into Thursday thinking we woke up Thursday morning thinking the Vikings were either going to get Drake May or JJ McCarthy, and they're going to have to give up their 2 first-round picks in this draft plus a first-round pick next year. Not only didn't they have to do that, they got JJ McCarthy. They also walked out of there with Dallas Turner, and they walked out of there with next year's first-round draft pick. So I give them an A. All right, and then so after the draft was the flurry of undrafted free agent signings. We're not going to talk about all 18 dudes or 19 dudes, whatever it is they signed.
Wow, a lot of people.
Yeah, but there are a couple notable guys up here. 17 undrafted free agents. Last year the Vikings signed the consensus top undrafted free agent on the board, and that was Ivan Pace Jr. And we all know what happened with him. He went on to have a great year. This year, the Vikings signed the top consensus undrafted free agent, UCLA edge Gabriel Murphy. And I, just like last year when we were doing our positional analysis segment with Ivan Pace, Drew, I think you said you had Ivan Pace as a second or third round guy. I can't remember where you had. What did you have for Gabriel Murphy this year? Do you remember?
I think it was 5th round, somewhere around there, 4th round. But the guy. I mean, Flores, you talk about him loving Dallas Turner, Ted. He's going to love this guy maybe more. Nose tackle, 3 technique, 4 technique, athlete. Flores is going to be able to maximize him and put him wherever he wants. He's probably excited about figuring out where he's going to play best. But the guy's such a freak athlete. He's going to make the team. He's going to be this year's Ivan Pace. I'm not worried about him. I can't believe another team didn't grab that guy in the 7th round. He needs, of course, they all got to work on something. He has to learn how to shed blocks better, in my opinion, and he needs to get stronger overall. But Gabriel Murphy could end up being the bookend guy over there with Dallas Turner. I mean,
not a very big guy for an edge, from what I understand.
No, but that gives him the ability to drop back and off ball coverage. He can play off ball coverage. There's so much to do with him. That's why I like the pick. He's versatile. You could so much to do with Gabriel Murphy. I'm shocked he didn't get drafted. You know what he is, Ted?
What?
He's a splash player. He'll get washed out of a lot of plays. He'll get washed out of 17 out of 20 plays, but the 3 plays he makes will be a sack fumble, another sack. So he'll flash, but he just won't be consistently flashing like Ivan Pace does or some of the others. It's the best way to explain it. And I don't mean that to be a rip on the guy, but he's a big playmaker, but a lot of plays he gets washed out of because he can't get off blocks. Does that make any sense?
It does. Thoughts on Gabriel Murphy there, Chris, if you have any?
I haven't seen a lot of him, but like you said, he looks like he's sort of undersized for an edge potentially, but he's got the athletic ability from everything I've seen. And if the Vikings want to continue rotating pass rushers, like we already talked about Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, all these guys, just so he can keep running fresh guys at quarterbacks. I think he's definitely going to end up making the team this year. Like you say, it's going to be this year's Ivan Pace for us and be a part of this continued defensive turnaround.
Another guy I want to talk about is soon-to-be Air Force Lieutenant linebacker Bo Richter. You thought about? I thought this was a guy. I thought you had. Did you have any? Did we talk about him, Drew?
No, I didn't have him on my big board.
You didn't. You had an Air Force dude. He was a safety, though, right? Wasn't he a safety?
Yeah, he was a safety.
Trey Taylor. Taylor was the guy I had on my big board, the safety from Air Force.
All right, well, then skip Bo Richter. Whatever.
No. We want to talk about Bo Richter scale. You want to talk about Wendy Richter? I'll talk about her. One of my favorite wrestler of all time.
How about the book Bo Jest? Do we want to talk about that?
Who?
Never mind. We're moving on.
What about Parker Titsworth? You want to talk about him?
I do not. How about Booby Clark?
Booby Clark, great player.
Bo Cephas?
Bo Cephas? No.
I do like that Trey Knox guy. That
was my next guy, tight end Trey Knox. Tell me about Trey Knox.
He's on the Drew Big Board, and I am shocked that guy didn't get drafted. The Drew Big Board ended up hitting 11 tight ends, and that's one of the top guys that got left off that I had going in like the 4th round. I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether he had the pop mask or he was found with a kilo in his trunk, but I would definitely look at that guy as being somebody that could help out while Hawkins is gone. Everything I saw on tape, that Knox guy, who went to the same school as Nick Muse. I think Nick Muse was a South Carolina guy too.
He was.
I liked everything I saw with Knox. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but I remember I was impressed watching him on tape, and I hope he works out as getting maybe a practice squad position or something. But we need help at tight end. I'm not sold on tight end yet, guys.
I'm not either. I kind of thought they might make a move in the 6th or 7th for a tight end. And maybe TJ Hawkinson's ahead of schedule and he'll be ready to go week 1 and it won't matter and that'll be fine. I don't know. But I've said this on the show, in earlier episodes, that when Hawkinson went down, it just felt like there was a huge void in production with Oliver and Johnny Munt. And I mean, it's obvious you're gonna have some drop in production, but you have to at least have the ability to rely on guys to catch passes. And I don't even think they had that at the end of the year when Hawkinson went out.
Oh, you know who he was on my draft big board?
What?
He was the guy that said he's happy, Ted, and he had that big happy grin on his face.
Oh yeah,
that was Knox we talked about.
Oh, okay.
Remember we talked about he's no relation to Amanda Knox, but he was one of the fastest guys I saw. I got all my notes on Knox right here. We don't want to go over it because we will if he makes the team. But
okay,
I was really happy with him with his tape.
All right. Go ahead, Chris.
So we've got Bo Richter in camp, which is nice because that means Andre Carter finally outranks somebody, which is cool. And they hopefully they're both lieutenants. Hopefully neither one of them will get lost. But one guy from the undrafted free agent class is worth looking at is a guy that a few people in the chat have mentioned, the cornerback out of Arkansas. Dwight McGlothern.
Yeah.
Another bigger cornerback. He's about 6'2", 190-ish. Second team All SEC 2022. Started out at LSU and transferred to Arkansas.
Hell yeah.
He's a guy that, he's gotten quite a bit of buzz since the Vikings signed him. Probably should have been drafted at some point, but he wasn't. But he seems like another guy that Brian Flores can't wait to get his hands on and try to do something with. So that's another guy I'll be keeping an eye on as we move forward here.
And McGlothern, I think, was kind of right behind Murphy as like the 1-2 in terms of top undrafted free agents that were on the board.
Yep.
And the Vikings got.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
we're Vikings are better at undrafted lists than they are. They got that down.
Yeah,
whoever scouts their undrafted guy, they got that down. One last note on Levi Drake Rodriguez.
Okay.
Ted, he went to Southwest Assemblies of God University.
Yeah.
That was his first college he went to, the JUCO level.
Yeah.
And I got a note here from Adam Schefter that says, Drew, he went to the Assembly of God University and he used to beat the hell out of people.
Oh, okay.
So I want to pass that along that, what? Beat the hell out of people? God University? What?
It's good. It's well done. It's a good dad joke right there.
Absolutely.
All right, Ruby. Ruby, are you out there?
I'm here.
President of sticker placement.
Oh, I got to ask Ted how he found that one in the cushions. How the hell did you find the one in your seat cushions? Why would you look back there?
Oh, it was right there. It was like right in the middle. As soon as I lifted the pillow up, it was right there. You couldn't miss it.
Oh, I thought it was behind the cushion. So like on the back of it.
Oh, no. It's right there.
You got more to find. You're going to have fun the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
Look at that.
Crap. Look at all the people on the wheel.
That's a big old wheel.
Look at that.
I put everybody on there a couple times just to give everybody an extra chance.
That's the wheel of 1960s right there. Look at that thing.
Nick Howard. Friend of the show, Nick Howard, wins the T-shirt that we were going to give away on Thursday. We just ran out of time. Nick, you know what to do. You've been a winner in the past. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. So that's our draft recap show. We will not have a studio show this coming weekend. We're going to take the week off, kind of recuperate. We will be back a week from Saturday with a studio show, and we're going to start breaking down these individual draft picks one by one. We can kind of give them their own little highlight reel each week. The only stipulation we have is that with JJ McCarthy, we will show no Ohio State highlights. None.
Nice.
Might not be able to find any then.
Zip. Well, all Michigan did against Ohio State was run for 850 freaking yards. My God. Anyways, be that as it may, but we'll do the prospect breakdowns starting. I think it's going to be next week, or are we going to wait a week on that, Drewster? Do we know yet?
I need a break. I need a week off.
Okay, we'll give you a schedule on that. We'll figure out something for the next studio show.
We'll be back after next week for the studio show. Not next Saturday, but the week after.
Yeah. So for me, I'll try to do better the next time. Chris, say goodnight. Drew, take us home.
Good night, Chris.
We got to you got to be fired up, right? For the Vikings. I mean, it's this draft.
Absolutely.
For the everybody.
Killed it.
About next year? You're not worried about next year. You're worried about this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
worry about next year.
Right. There's going to be a lot of great studio shows ahead. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for our live show. We always enjoy doing this. I always learn a lot when I listen to you guys about football, man. It really makes a difference to me. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the next studio show, which will be 132. We'll put together a good show for you then.
133, I think, actually.
Is it 133?
I think so, yeah.
One of those.
132, 133. We'll be back with some funny shit. That'll be all right.
120, 121, whatever it takes.
Hail to the victors. Say goodnight, Chris.
Good night, Chris.
Say goodnight, Ted.
Good night, Ted. Shut up, nerds.